I can go and ask anybody for files. I can ask anybody to speak with people within the Archdiocese. If they say no, and we don't have any other legal recourse at that time, we can't continue to push that issue. That has been one of the frustrations on, number one, I think, with the public who want answers or this to be completed. And it's been some frustration for us as well as far as specific requests. I look at it like this. I know as a chief of police that I have a boss. I have people that I have to report to. Most of us here all have bosses. Even within the Archdiocese, you have an archbishop, you have a vicar general. I'm not an expert on their hierarchy or their organizational chart completely, but everybody has a boss. And all we want to do is be able to talk to those individuals that have knowledge about things that we are investigating, or to just answer questions so we have a better frame with our investigations on how to proceed. And that has been somewhat frustrating throughout the process. Police are not an overarching group of people where we can break the law to make people speak with us. What I will say is that right now we are getting more cooperation from the Archdiocese. I want to make that very clear. There have been questions that we've asked that now we are meeting with them on a regular basis. And I think that that is a good thing. But I want to emphasize again that when there are questions that are not answered, we will continue to work with our county attorney's office and others to look at different, how do I want to put this, different methods that we can utilize if we need to compel somebody to talk to us. The Archdiocese should be fully aware that if there is a complaint of some sort of child sexual abuse, that they are mandatory reporters. I think that it's been well reported, canon law versus criminal law. In criminal law right here in the state of Minnesota, a priest or anybody in the Archdiocese in certain institutions are mandatory reporters. And you know, for police authorities, not just the St. Paul Police Department, it's been well documented. There have been many things on the credibly accused priest list that didn't happen even in St. Paul. Those things should have been reported. And those are some of the things we continue to look at today. Our job is to investigate crimes. But if people don't come forward to us, we have a very difficult time knowing if a crime occurred or if a crime was covered up. So we need people to come forward to tell us that information. That's why we actually did our own request in one of our news conferences with Commander Mary Nash about if we have other victims out there to please come forward. And regardless whether the statute of limitations has expired or not, I think we need to do due diligence for all of our citizens right here in the city of St. Paul. We'll assist other agencies as well, but we need to really concentrate here in St. Paul. One of the confusing things has been that if a allegation of a crime occurred, let's say, outside the city of St. Paul, but within the Archdiocese of Minneapolis and St. Paul, who investigates that crime? Will that law enforcement agency or sheriff's department investigate that crime? However, if there was a decision made where there wasn't a mandatory reporter made at the Chancery here in St. Paul, how does that work? And those might be joint investigations. Those are some of the questions I think that the public doesn't understand the complexities of some of the things that have transpired so far throughout this case. And with many people, all the reports and then experts that want to come forward and say, you know, the police should be doing that and attorneys should be doing that. Those are things that, again, we need facts. I have great investigators. I have 3 people that have worked on this full time since this came forward. We didn't start this investigation. There were victims. And there was someone who came forward and said that we think the Archdiocese hasn't done things right back in September. And since then, we've learned a lot, and I expect that we will continue to learn quite a bit. There's still a lot of confusion with people out there about what the role is of the St. Paul Police Department. This is a bigger role than just the St. Paul Police Department. But what I will say as a chief, and what I said very passionately, as you put it in my first press conference, is we expect transparency from the Archdiocese. When I hear over and over again that there have been mistakes that have been made, we need to know what those mistakes are. We're going to continue to investigate, and that's number one, victims of any alleged abuse. No matter what happens, they need to have number one priority, just like we would for anybody else that came forward on any kind of abuse or sexual abuse claim. Number two, we expect to be able to talk to people at the Archdiocese, which right now, after the last press conference, we've had an opportunity to do. But we will have more questions. And we're waiting for some future judges' orders, and we'll see where those leads take us. And finally, working closely with Ramsey County Attorney John Choi's office. We've had many meetings with him. All the questions you've asked here today, we ask ourselves, sitting right in this conference room or over in the county attorney's office, about how we can proceed, follow the law and due process, but continue to go forward with any of the questions that I think the public really wants answers to.